essentially what this is season 10 of Love Out Spark, ADHD and Resilience.
Okay.
And you, Dave Cottrell, are going to kick this off. You and Up for the Challenge are starting this last 6 episodes I'm doing for a long, long time, maybe ever. I don't know. And that's the thing. But I have to thank you for something. The ability to take a break. I have never felt more comfortable stepping away because I met you. And you have given me this incredible like intensity of it's okay to do this. And you know what? If I come back, great. If I don't, great. I've never felt that kind of calm about, because I honestly don't believe I've ever taken a break in my entire life, whether it's my day job or trying to help someone else. This podcast is just the last couple of years. I'm 40 years old. But my whole life, I don't think I've truly stepped away. Like truly.
Yeah.
And you gave me the permission to do that. Actually.
Well, that's handy because I'm considering giving myself the permission to do it too.
We'll give each other permission to do it.
It's like this series is about ADHD and resilience, and here we have a bunch of creators saying "fuck resilience."
Okay, you're right. That's the ADHD side that I love so much. But I have 3 questions for you. It's literally 3 questions.
Okay.
And the first one is, with your mental health, and I know that you have bipolar and ADHD, can you pinpoint what your biggest weakness is with your mental health?
I'm too hard on myself when I make mistakes.
Wow, that was the quickest answer of all time. I would agree with that.
What's quite interesting about it is I'm not hard on anybody else. And like other people can make as many mistakes as they want. Well, ideally not, but
right.
But other people, when they make mistakes, I'm just like, look, it's a mistake.
Yeah.
And you're human, and that's okay. And when I make mistakes, there's a logical part of my brain which tries to say that, because I've said it to so many other people that eventually these things become part of what you say to yourself.
Right.
But I don't feel that. Right? A prime example, I mean, I made a mistake earlier this week. I'm not going to say what the mistake is because I can't be bothered going through it again. And ultimately, it was a point where I attempted to live up to my values. I backed off, and then I went back to try and live up to my values again. And for context, I am someone who is formerly obese and used humor about my weight a lot throughout my life. So I come from that background, but one of my community made a joke about Axl Rose and being overweight, and it's against my own values to body shame somebody.
Right.
So I said, look, that's not cool. That's not cool. Like, let's not body shame people.
Yeah.
And then chat was like, oh, it's a joke. It's just it's Axl Rose is never going to hear this or whatever. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. He's not going to hear it. We shouldn't do it. And then like Guns N' Roses song lyrics started coming in, but with words changed to being about weight. And if I'd just continued to shut it down at that point, I'd have been happy with myself for that day.
Right.
But no, I joined in. I thought I kind of got a little bit giddy, and I got a little bit, and I started seeing the funny side of it. And I did this for it was only about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, something like that at tops. And then I was like, you know what? I was right at the first place. We shouldn't be doing this. As much as it's funny
right.
for us, and as much as Axl Rose will never hear any of this, it's not about any of that. It's about the principle of the fact that we shouldn't be body shaming people, and I should be not an inspiration, but I should be a role model to my community, and I should be standing up to our values. So I said that, and at that point, that would be that if I was to be watching somebody else's stream, that'd have been enough for me. Like they
Yeah.
said that, and they've apologized, and they've kind of, they had the bit of fun, but they instantly realized, and then they were like, it wasn't like 6 months later a bunch of people were out with
Right.
pitchforks looking for an apology.
Right.
It was like straight away the person realized, look, we're going down a slippery slope here, and
Yeah.
that'd be cool if it was someone else had done that. I'd forgive him instantly. Not me. I couldn't get my head back into the stream, and I just felt like a piece of shit, basically.
Yeah.
So I was like, and it comes, it's because I hadn't lived up to my own values. And even though I tried to live up to my values, then didn't, and then lived up to my values again, it wasn't
It
okay.
didn't matter. It
It
was
didn't
this.
matter, yeah.
Right.
So in the end, I basically said, look, I'm actually not okay to carry on streaming today. I I think what I did there was horrendously wrong. And again, it's irrelevant whether the person wasn't there or in the room or not. The
Right.
principle of the thing is that we shouldn't be doing this, because the second we normalize it as being okay to talk about an obscure celebrity like that, it becomes okay to talk about, a person, an acquaintance like that. It becomes okay to talk about a friend like that. And I said, I'm just not happy with myself. And I said, I feel like I've let the community down by not upholding my own values. So I had to end the stream. And again, that's a little bit more harsh than I'd expect somebody else to be. But then I just carried on beating myself up about it all day. And I mean, on an emotional level, on an intellectual level, I was trying to coach myself.
Right.
But it was like, there was two whole bloody voices going on. There was the coach voice being like, look, you made a mistake, you
Yeah.
took accountability for it, you've done the right thing, you fucked up, yes, but you made it right, and nobody really got hurt in the process.
But
And
why can't we see that? Like,
well,
why can't?
I could see that as I could see that intellectually, but
Right. But
every part of my body wanted to go to every coping mechanism I've ever used for the rest.
yeah.
I was in complete and utter emotional dysregulation, and it wasn't for the fact. If it wasn't for the fact, you know that Alone is pregnant, right? You've come across that.
No,
Or is that the first time you're hearing this?
are
So,
you kidding me?
no,
Okay, let's talk. Maybe you should have led with that one.
I thought you already knew. I put it on social media.
Yeah, and I'm so good at social media, right?
Well, there is that. There is that. You'll see the post in about 6 months,
Yeah.
and the baby will be here by that point. So we
Oh,
are
congratulations!
expecting.
Then.
Yes, we are expecting my third child. Alone is first.
Oh my
We're expecting in
God,
November.
dude! Congratulations!
Thank you. Thank
Cheers!
you.
Cheers! I don't know if
Cheers.
you have a cup or something. Like...
I have a glass of our apple and blackcurrant cordial,
Okay.
but how very tremendously British. But
But that, dude, that's awesome.
but if it wasn't for the fact that we had a hospital appointment to go to, I think I literally, from when I ended the stream until that hospital appointment, I just sat there beating myself up. One of the phrases I use with my community is, we don't guilt ourselves into greatness.
Yes, I've heard that one.
And I was sat there trying to, well, I didn't even know what it was. The thing is, I wasn't trying to guilt myself into greatness. I was literally trying to cancel myself. I was like,
Yeah.
this is deplorable. What you did is completely and utterly out of order, and you deserve no place on the internet ever again. So like, that's how harsh the other side of it was going.
You're actually speaking, what you are saying is literally what I am going through, and why I have decided to just, like, I'm K right now. I am knowledge element.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because my reliability to other people isn't what it needs to be. And that's it, for guests, for friends, for real life, like all of it. It's just not it's not me. It's not me. And I know that if I continue to push, which I could do, I could easily just push through this. I will start to slowly turn into a person I don't want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I've got to cut and take a step away right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you. I feel like I'm in the same place.
I'm going to bring people on that are friends of mine that I love, that I know the conversation, because honestly, my wife said it best. It was, I came inside after the last one-on-one I had with a new person, and she was telling me about all of these incredible things that have happened to her in terms of, like, her good friend was murdered 3 days before we spoke, and then she's tried to, end her life multiple times. And when I walked inside, I was like, sweetheart, I'm I need a break from the heavy.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, of course you do, Lobal, because not only do you do this, you record it, then you go back and edit it.
Mm-hmm.
So you are hearing this over and over and over, and I go, that's a great point. Maybe that's what's, wearing on me. I'm not saying I'm stopping, but I'm saying that I'm okay with walking away and then maybe coming back. I'm okay with that.
So I know you always get my TikToks in batches. So you might see,
right.
you'll probably see yesterday's one in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I wasn't talking about me in the one I put up yesterday, or was it even today? It might have been the one I put up today. Right. And basically, it says that the problem with burnout is that burnout it comes gradually, but you feel it suddenly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, 100%.
So we don't notice the burnout when it's coming. It's because it's taking 1% of our energy. It's fact, and sometimes certain interactions, they take energy and they give energy back. Right? I know anytime that I've spent an hour or two with you, it's exhausting and exhilarating at the same time.
Right.
It's like, and listeners, you can make your own minds up what we were doing in that hour.
I already feel better.
It's almost like, I think I might be onto one of the greatest ADHD analogies ever here. It's
by the way. I'll let you go first.
It's like we have two fuel tanks. It's like we have two different. We don't run on one fuel. We run on two different fuels. And certain interactions, pretty much all interactions take our main fuel, right? But certain interactions give us that secondary fuel. And that's it. It's like the main fuel tank might be actually running on absolute dregs, but the backup tank's got something in it because of the interaction. And honestly, like the reason I was saying this thing about burnout, about the idea that it happens gradually, but you feel it suddenly. And what happens there is people get this misunderstanding is they go, shit, what happened today? What happened yesterday? Like just before coming on this call, I was like, wow, I am beat. But again, I know that you're going to put something in my backup tank. Again, euphemisms there, people, just dial into them. But yeah, like I'm absolutely beat. And the first point of call when that happens is like, well, what happened today? Everyone's like, what happened today? No, what's been happening for the last 6 months, 6 years? I've been Mindset by Dave for 7 years now. I want to just be Dave. Like most of the people in my life now know me and met me as Mindset by Dave. So that's like, I love talking about mental health. I absolutely love doing it. I also love having breaks from talking about mental health, And I think in order to do that part well, there has to be some rest, there has to be some time back, there has to be some moments of lightness.
Yeah. It's like I want to watch South Park and just get lost in it. I want to watch Manifest, which is, by the way, coming out. Oh my God, I can't wait. The final season, and just get lost in that, because I pushed so hard so fast. But I can't say that I did it the wrong way, because that is what works for me, is pushing hard and fast. And it does help, a lot of people. The issue is, this is a fire analogy. The fire analogy works here, because by stepping away, you might not see the flames or whatever, but the coals underneath, I feel like I've built so fucking hot that if I do decide to return, all I got to do is grab another log, throw it on, and watch it burn, because I did all of this work to get to that point. And that's
to continue the fire analogy. What's the one thing that can really kill a fire is when you smother it.
Right. You pour water on it. I'm not pouring water on it. Yeah, I'm just walking away from it.
Yeah, exactly. You pour, but like people throw sand on it, or they've got fire blankets, and it takes the oxygen away because it needs the oxygen in order to keep burning.
Exactly. That's why just walking away from the fire pit doesn't put it out entirely.
Leave the embers on.
Yeah, exactly. So that segues great into the next question. Yeah,
Perfect. It's like
you
we
just know how to
rehearsed
do
it.
this. You just know how to do it. Like, it's incredible. What about your mental health is your biggest strength? Can you pinpoint your biggest strength with mental health?
Yeah, absolutely. My ability to put things in analogies.
Okay. That yeah, you are damn good at that.
I
I,
like to think so.
I
That's one thing I'm okay at giving myself credit for. And do
yeah,
you know what it's from? What it came from? It came from years and years of not being understood. And so I had to speak the language of a person that doesn't have bipolar, or I had to speak weirdly. The funny thing is I spoke the language of someone who doesn't have ADHD before I even realized I had ADHD, because
right,
I needed to explain. I wasn't explaining my condition, I was just explaining my reality. And my
yeah.
reality was the symptoms of ADHD. I didn't know it was ADHD at the time. But yeah, it was one of those things that I remember having a bit of a revelation a few years back when, and like people, a lot of people in the mental health sphere will sit there and go, "Oh no," like people who don't have it don't understand. And I'm like, and I'm like, I was one of those people a few, like, several years ago that'd be like, "Oh, people on the outside just don't get it. They'll never get it."
Lobau's Spark has started a fundraising effort for Crisis Text Line. We have a goal of $19 per episode, as $19 supports one person in their time of absolute crisis with their mental health. If you would like to donate through our fundraiser titled Lauren's Infinity, the link is listed in the episode's description. Lauren was my wife's best friend and loved by all who came into contact with her.
They'll never get it. They don't get it wrong. Sorry, they don't get it as correct a lot of the time. They'll never get it. They might never fully get it, but you can get them close. And I remember having this thought one day of thinking, I was trying to explain the reality of being bipolar to one of my friends, and they weren't getting it. And I was like, little light bulb moments. It was like, of course they don't get it, because you have been living with bipolar for 27 years or whatever it had been at that point, and you're only just beginning to get it. So someone that you've told a little bit and piece about is, you can't give them your perspective. So the only way you can you can't educate a person on your condition by giving them your perspective. You have to convert it
Wow.
into their perspective.
That's a great point, Dave. That right there. That literally is brilliant.
So yeah, I would never have been able to do that without experiencing it.
Yeah.
And I would never. But the thing is, now I love doing this for other people. If someone comes to me and they're like, I want my family to understand me, I want my friends to understand me, I'll be like, right, well, you tell me in your words, and then I'll convert it into theirs.
Yeah.
Um, and it's actually a process we call building a bridge.
Well, that's
And
I use the bridge analogy all the time in a different way with ADHD. It's knowing what to do and doing it.
yeah, exactly.
You have to build your own bridge from knowing what to do to doing it. And it's
Yeah,
got to be your way. And if it isn't, then it's not going to work, because you can't just hire someone to build this bridge for you. You have to be the one hammering the nails. You have to be all the blood, sweat, and tears of building the bridge yourself. But the greatest part about that is, at the end, you're going to take so much fucking pride in that bridge, which every time you drive over it, you're going to be like, I did that. I did
well,
that. I
hopefully
did
you're going
that.
to
I
take so
did
much
that.
pride in that bridge at the
Yeah.
end. I think that's one of the big differences.
I I know.
I think I think there are many people out there that are fantastic at building those bridges, but they're terrible at sitting there at the end and go, I did that. In fact, George, you know what? Like, I don't know what, this is kind of hitting me quite hard. This right now is that there's so many people out there who are like, oh my God, I had to do all this myself, and they say it as a negative thing. And it's like I'm
It,
currently trying. So I'm currently I've been back in therapy since January, and it was a great decision for me. And what we're kind of realizing is the fact that I was raised by two women, um, And I love leaving that open for people's interpretation. It was my mum and my grandma, but if you want, it's Pride Month right now, so let's. I was raised by two powerful lesbians.
So we shifted from Mental Health Month. Now it's
Now
Pride.
it's Pride Month. Yeah.
I don't know the months here.
Well, the thing is, it should be Pride like all months, and it should be Mental Health Month all
right.
months,
That's
and it should be Black History Month all months.
Thank
you.
Thank you. God damn it! How hard is this?
But I get it. But and the problem is there's only 12 months in the year, so most of them share anyway. But eventually that's going to lead to all of them sharing all the time, right. which is what which is hopefully where we'll get to.
Yeah.
But I was raised by two women, and it was with my mum and my nan, and so therefore I am very feminine in terms of my personality traits, right. And as you've met me in real life, an absolutely hulking giant man in my physical traits.
In my physical traits, I'm an absolute midget. so it works.
But I picked Lobau up and put him in my pocket. But so my dad was never around, and when I did see him, I saw it was like for 2 hours a week, and most of the time he was on shift work. So then he'd just go to bed, and I'd look after my little sisters. So he never passed on any qualities to me. He passed on qualities to me genetically. Apparently he was somewhat of a diva, which I have been known to be. And
so funny.
And basically, but he never taught me anything. He never showed me. So I had to do that whole self-taught thing forever. But when it came up, like that, I'm trying to be this parent to everybody else, like to my actual kids and then to my community, as I'm trying to be this parent. And I'm deliberately using the word parent here because actually I'm not trying to be a dad to them. I'm trying to be a mum to them because that's all I actually know. I'm trying to be a mum to my kids. We've always joked because my kids, my two kids that I've got now are from my first wife, and she's a very feminine, nurturing type person, and then we always joke around saying that basically my kids have two biological mums and two stepdads because my wife's like definitely the more dominant personality, more masculine traits,
right?
And it's again mentally much more masculine, physically. I'm trying to figure all this out, and it's like, and basically, so my therapist was like, I was saying about you need to be a father to yourself. And that hit really hard because and my initial reaction, and this is a reaction that I think a lot of people have in the mental health space, I actually outright said, that's not fair. And the thing is, you need to be your own father, and that's not fair aren't bipolar things that are separated and far apart and completely mutually exclusive. It can be equally true that I need to be a father for myself because my dad is not going to come back from the dead, and if he did, he'd probably still be as crappy as he was when he was alive, But basically, I was treating those two things as if they're separate. Right. And the reason I've just gone off on this massive tangent, because all of my tangents have purposes, I promise.
Oh yeah.
The tangents I've just gone off on now for dear viewers, is the fact that it can be equally true that it's not fair that you should have to do everything for yourself.
Yeah.
But you're a freaking badass for the fact that you did it. Now, and I think people spend too much time stuck in that it's not fair. Now, I'm not saying that you can't admit that it's not fair, but if that's where your focus goes, then you'll stay stuck there. Whereas if your focus goes, you know what? I did this in an unfair situation. Not the two things can be integrated. It's unfair that you should have to do everything for yourself. It's unfair that every single one of us should have to find our own way. Like, it is unfair with that because neurotypicals have a freaking way, and that's it. I mean, they probably argue that they've got like 3 ways or something.
No, they don't. Okay,
they've got 1.5 ways.
Thank you.
And every single one of us have been shown the neurotypical way. Like, we might not have got it. We might have chameleoned and adapted to it. We might have masked up and adapted to it while suffering.
Right.
And some people get into their adult life thriving in the neurotypical way, even though they're neurodivergent, just by virtue of the fact that all neurodivergents are different and some people can adapt, and that's okay. But that way is handed to the world.
Correct. So it's amazing that you bring this up, because I am saying this to every single person in the last 6, but you, of course, led me perfectly into it. It's big surprise is so I've spoken with probably over 75 people at this point, whether it's groups or one-on-ones or whatnot. This is my research. I'm not reading it in a book. I want to hear what people actually have to say, what their experiences are. This was a huge struggle, but this and this and this. And that's exactly what you just said was, but, it's not fair, but.
Yeah.
The other side of that.
And
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's not fair. So, and you did it. Like, it's not fair that I was bullied in school, but I got a horrendous amount of compassion for other people from that. It's not fair that I was born with bipolar disorder, but it's given me the ability to describe mental health in ways that
exactly
textbooks can't do it.
Exactly.
It's like, and
the problem is the world doesn't support the second part of the sentence.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's the world supports either side of it, but not the combination of the two. The world teaches either ends of the spectrum. It teaches victimhood or absolute accountability.
Yeah,
like extreme ownership or no ownership whatsoever. And again, it's just because extremes sell. That's all it is. Right?
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
It's possible to be, it's possible to be a person that acknowledges the fact that you have been a victim. And I say the words "have been a victim" because, like, I had to acknowledge the fact that I have been a victim at times in my life. Right. And the way I like to think of it there is that I was victimized in those moments, but I am not a victim, because if you say you're a victim, you're always a victim. Like, right. I am English. I am always English. I have always been English. It's like, if I say that, it's like the way that if people as well, like I used to describe with bipolar. Now, I don't normally tell people this in conversation because it doesn't make any sense to a lot of people. But I went through a whole period of, instead of saying I have bipolar disorder, I said I am prone to the symptoms of bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I'm not always symptomatic.
Right.
And I thought I was until I was about 27, 28. And it was only weirdly learning a bunch of things that don't work for a lot of people with bipolar, like mindfulness, CBT, and mood mapping. I learned those things, and it was only through doing those that I was able to actually take a step back and go, oh shit, I actually do have days where I'm not at one of the extremes. And that changed a lot of things for me. But this, by saying I'm prone to the symptoms of bipolar disorder, it means I will have periods of mania. I will have periods of depression. I will have periods of rapid cycling where I switch between the two.
Right.
But I'll also have periods of being normal. Now, I think of this because I know physical health to mental health analogies only go so far, and there's always ways you can pick holes in them. But if you think about if someone says, I have a cold, they mean they are symptomatic of a cold right now. Like, right. If that person gets 3 or 4 colds a year versus the average 1 or whatever, then you might say that person's more prone to the symptoms or more prone to having a cold. But it's like, do I have bipolar when its symptoms aren't there? Like, do you have a cold when its symptoms aren't there? It's like, it's not a measurable thing. Like, biologically, they can't just go like, okay, it's not, it's literally, I wish it was actually, because then they could just like give you a brain scan and be like, oh, yep, there's the bipolar bit. There's the ADHD bit.
Yep.
I reckon they're going to figure that one out eventually,
God, it's fucking good to see you again. The last question before we hop off and talk for another 20 minutes is, can you pinpoint the time in your life where you had to be the most resilient? And did it just happen, or did you choose to be resilient? Was it an instinct?
Yeah, so this I don't know if this answer. I don't know if this answer is going to be as quick as the last two.
That's totally fine.
I feel like there's 2 times, and I think it's something switched in. So Now you get the heavy stuff. I mean, you're already aware. I tried to take my own life in
Yep.
2009. And for me, I still wanted to after I failed. Like I didn't have the epiphany moment that at that point where it was like, oh, it failed. I'm so glad it failed. Um, I am now full of the joys of spring. Let's go. That didn't happen for me, and it does happen for other people. And I love the fact that that happens for other people. I kind of wish that we'd all just bounce back before rock bottom. That'd be like quite nice, because practically every person that I know who has been suicidal, it's they've gone on to do great things, and it's tremendous. Like surviving a suicide for a lot of people is a tremendous motivator to. It's like, I am now here on time that I might not have had, therefore I should do something with it. And I do actually celebrate my anniversary.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean,
And what I like
I'm
to do,
so glad
what
you failed. So
I
glad.
what I actually quite like, how I like to celebrate my survival anniversary, my because that's what that tattoo
Right.
on my upper arm is.
Right.
It's like it's a brain and half a heart made into a semicolon, and that doesn't mean you need only half a heart, by the way. It's just a full heart doesn't look like a semicolon. but
It's true.
but actually, it's all well and good being mindset by Dave, but you need the heart too.
So it's late at night, and I'm in the studio again, trying to work hard, whatnot. I want to thank the top supporters of this podcast. It doesn't exist without you. I'm dumbfounded by y'all's support. Thank you, Terry Shubilla. Thank you, Leo Guinan. Thank you, Kirk Hofstrom. Thank you, Casey Elliott. Thank you, Sarah Delano. Thank you, Blushing Crafter. Thank you, Jamie Young. And thank you, Beth Jones. It's just impossible for this to happen without y'all. So I love y'all so much.
And basically, I watched a film called The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, and it's a true story based on I think it's Jean-Michel Bauby, I believe. I could be pronouncing that wrong. He was the director of French Elle magazine, and got in a car accident, got locked in syndrome, and couldn't do anything other than blink. Like, that was it. He could move his eyes. That was it. And he, with a very ingenious nurse, and this is a prime example of another person being like, how can I build a bridge for you? This nurse, these like got him starting off doing particular eye movements for yes or no, and then started doing eye movements for the letters of the alphabet. And using that technique, they wrote a book, which is just phenomenal.
Wow.
That's phenomenal in itself, but that wasn't the inspiring part for me. The inspiring part for me was he's on the beach for Father's Day, and they were like, the doctors were like, look, there's a huge risk of infection if you go out there. You're gonna have to be very, very careful. He's in the chair, he's got lots of machines monitoring him and all the rest of it. And he can't, and his kids are running around on the beach as kids and do. And he can only watch. And he said, the line comes up saying, I realized that even a shadow, even a sliver, even a fragment of a dad is still a dad. And that was one light bulb moment for me. That was the point at which I no longer wanted to die. And I realized, because I'd been thinking for months, if not longer at this point, that my kids deserved a better dad. But my idea of how to get them a better dad was for me to be gone from this planet, and then the better dad to be someone that their mum married. That was how my kids were going to get a better dad. Now that wasn't because I was too selfish to be that better dad. That wasn't because I was too lazy. It's because I believed I was too broken.
Yeah.
Didn't think it, believed it. And there's I choose that word very deliberately. I 100% believed that I could not become what they needed.
Yeah.
And I heard that quote, and I cried and I cried and I cried. And when I stopped crying, I believed I could be what they needed. So that was one big area of resilience. And from that point, I started my training, both physical training for my own health and training for education. And I moved forward, and it was like night and day. And then a few years later, I got too far into the point of burnout, I think, without seeing the signs, without feeling, and I went into a depression for about 3.5 months. And basically, through that process, I was working as a personal trainer at the time. I gradually lost all my clients because at first some of them were like, "Oh, it's okay, don't worry about it," like, because I missed 1 or 2 sessions, and they were like, "Don't worry about it," because I was open. I'd already started opening up to the world about my mental health at that point.
Yeah.
And they were very understanding. But then weirdly, 4 of them disappeared in the same week, and that was it. I was like,
Yeah.
that's it. I'm like, I've failed. I'm a failure. Very big difference between those two phrases. But
Yep.
and I remember, like, literally, because I've got a penchant for the dramatic. I was lying on the couch, and I say I've got a penchant for the dramatic. No one was listening to me. No one was watching this. And I couldn't stop just literally wailing, saying, "No one's coming to save me." And it was like, "No one's coming to save me. No one's." I remember this ties in very neatly with the answer I gave a moment ago about the whole it's equally right that it's unfair. At that point, I've been sharing about my mental health for about 2 or 3 years. Um, I'm yes, the Mindset by Dave aspect of things had already started by that point. I was running it at the same time as being as doing my personal training. In fact, I was helping all of my personal training clients out with their mindset at the same time, and it was going absolutely fantastic.
Right.
And I stopped doing what I stopped doing. Nobody called, nobody messaged, nobody got in touch. And it's that same thing that a lot of people, when they're the ones that's always doing stuff for other people, it's that same thing that every person that's in that situation experiences when they stop, is the fact that people don't suddenly jump in and do it, because that's not the boundaries within that relationship. And I always think it's interesting where people are like, "Oh, how can you possibly need help? You're always helping. You're always, helping other people." That's like driving your car around all day, and when it runs out of gas, and I'll say it's gas for you, because I know you Americans don't understand the word petrol.
Petroleum?
Petroleum nitrate. We got some of those liquid petroleum gas.
Unbelievable.
But
I get it.
Basically, it's like basically, I'm when someone says, "How can you need help? You're always helping everyone else." That's like driving your car around all day and going, "How can you need gas? I've been driving you around all day." It needs fueling up, right? And so did I. But nobody, I mean nobody that came through for me at that point. Like, my close friends didn't. No, like my none of my clients did. My family were back in that whole holy shit, last time he was like this, shit got real, walking on eggshells. They didn't really know how to react in that point. And I kept on saying this, "No one's coming to save me, no one's coming to save me." And honestly, again, I don't know what switched it over, but I was like, "No one's coming to save me. I've got to do it myself." And I stopped thinking for a second about the fact that it's not fair. And it wasn't fair that no one came to save me. It wasn't fair. That's equally true as the fact that I needed to get up and save myself. And I didn't just save myself. I got up, and I was like, and then the next sentence that came out of my head was, "You're not the only person sat there thinking no one's coming to save you. Maybe you could be the person that goes to save them." Now, looking back, I'm like, have I got a complex? I'm like, but honestly, that the idea that came out of that was something called a life a day. So actually, I can totally pinpoint where this was. It was 2017, because in 2018, January the 1st, I set off to give an hour of my time to a different person every single day for 365 days. And then when I finished that and did it for 365 different people, I got a little bit hooked on it and ran it for 3 years.
And big surprise.
Yeah, exactly. So again, those were the two times I think that I don't even want to call it resilience exactly. It was because I wasn't being resilient. I went from zero resilience to, I think of it as a bungee cord, right? And this analogy is a little bit grim in places. But I think if you try and help someone when they're on the way down, it's almost like I feel like the reason that people always get to that rock bottom first is the fact there's not enough tension in the cord. If you think of it as like someone who's like someone basically they step off the platform, and it all comes down to how long that individual person's cord is, because some people will get step off the path, drop down, and they'll bounce back up again, but they'll bounce back to exactly where they were on the same level.
Right.
Whereas what you actually get when it's the other way is the further down someone goes, it tends to be that they then go, when they do rebound and come back, they come back. And I'm not saying what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right.
I'm not saying it makes them, I'm not saying that person's not traumatized through that experience. But what I'm saying is they come back with such tenacity, such a fire for doing something that it's unparalleled. And that's, I think as well, like, I think that's what happened. And it's a rare situation, because so many times if your descent into something is quite slow, your recovery is quite slow as well. But for me, I think in both of these situations, it was kind of quite rapid and quite sharp going in, and therefore led to something kind of big and monumental on the way out. But my issue, I suppose, nowadays is accepting the fact that I still have value when I'm not giving an hour of my time every single day to someone, accepting that I still have value just in looking out for me rather than doing everything for my kids. And then I'm, about
that's something you taught me.
Kids.
It's something you taught me. If you don't value yourself and your time and your, personality, just everything about you, you can't value someone else when they're low. So it doesn't work like that. Like, unless you're good, you can't force helping someone else, even though you really want to.
I think helping other people is a bit of a gateway for people to helping themselves. It can be,
absolutely,
because weirdly, this comes down to how close we are to our problems, and its perspective again is the fact that your problems everyone else's problems tend to seem smaller than yours. Right. And sometimes you'll actually look at someone on the outside and be like, oh my God, that person's problems are so huge, I'm glad I don't have those. But a lot of times other people's problems don't seem as big as ours. And that's simply because we're stood closer to ours. We are closer to our problems than we are to that other person's problems. Now, the interesting thing though is that perspective leads us to, instead of going into a problem thinking this is super complicated and doesn't have an answer and is too big to handle, we go, well, it's simple. I mean, how many people give advice where it starts with the word just? By the way, no one ever takes advice where they say just, right? It's like, if you say, oh, just go for a walk, or just have a cup of tea. It's very English, very British. Yes, just have a cup of tea and wait for all this to blow over. But basically, when we look at other people's problems, we think ours are impossible to fix. And then we'll look at someone else's problem and we go, oh, I can fix that. And that can be quite empowering, because it's like a warm up to fixing your own problems. But eventually, you do have to fix your own. Yep. And again, that really comes back to that whole making a bridge and finding your own way. Because not only do you have to fix your own, but you have to give yourself some damn credit. Because trust me, you gave yourself shit when you couldn't fix the problem. So therefore, you deserve a bit of credit when you do.
Mic drop. Do you remember the last thing I said to you the first time we ever spoke, when it was audio only and I wouldn't put myself online and all of that? Do you remember the last thing?
Oh God!
Probably not, because you have ADHD.
I don't remember that. I don't remember what we talked about 5 seconds ago.
I know. I remember. I will
watch this interview back and say, God, we said some really good shit, and I don't remember any of it.
It's been great. It's been phenomenal. But the last thing I said to you was, life is tough as shit, but neurodivergents have a natural grind and intensity about them to always dig themselves out, to always be focused on the next thing. And that, to me, makes us extremely powerful.
Indeed.